What is a tongue tie? It's a fibrous tissue, as Dr. An told us. This is formed in utero when it's unable to separate from the bottom jaw. And most of us are familiar with something that looks kind of like this. It looks like some kind of rope that's tying the tongue into the bottom jaw. Basically, what is happening is that it comes from the bottom of the mouth and it extends upwards, and it can stop in just the middle of the tongue, or it can go all the way through the tip of the tongue like you saw in the previous picture. Here's a side view of the tongue tie, which you will find fascinating. So let's say that you just had a short one. Or let's say you had a medium one, or let's say you had a really intense one that goes all the way to the tip of your tongue. It affects this entire portion and all of these muscles that sit in that, and obviously the fascial line that we just talked about. So common symptoms are lack of mobility. Obviously, if everything is that tied up, you're going to have zero ability to isolate any of these. You're also just going to have this chronic resting tension in the tongue. Obviously, pretty apparent. But another thing that shows up a lot in singers is that if they do have some pretty decent mobility, it's sluggish, or it's slow, or it's always being dragged along by something. That's just the singing symptoms. And here are just some of the full body symptoms. I literally can't give you a list because it is so extensive that it would make you cry, the amount of things that this is tied up in. Most of us, like I showed you before with these pictures, we're like, oh, I can see some kind of white rope in there, therefore I have a tongue tie. I mean, yes, these people do have tongue ties, but what about the people you can't see? What about all of these hidden tongue ties that we have? What about this guy? There's not really any like white rope. I guess there's kind of like a little one there, but he's able to lift his tongue up all the way. He has a fair amount of mobility. His teeth look pretty nice, so there's not really anything going on there, right? Well, what if I show you an after picture of his tongue tie release? Does that look like a big mobility change to you? Yeah, because this guy got 40% more mobility. 40, that is a lot. So I just want to point out that you can't always see what's going on. You have to do what we call a functional assessment or a mobility assessment. So here is me before my tongue tie release. So you'll see in my first picture, there's not really any compensation going on there. You can see a little bit of tie there, but like, it doesn't look like a big deal. And when I'm asked to put the whole portion of my tongue up on the roof of my mouth, I'm still able to open it pretty big. But guess what? This was only 75%. So now that I've sufficiently scared you all, I'm going to scare you all a little more. On average, about 75% of adults have some kind of tongue tie. And of those 75, 45% have moderate to severe ties. And if that seems like a staggering number, I completely agree with you. It is a staggering number, but I'm going to give you another number. There is 70% of the population that wears eyeglasses. And we see that as nothing to really bat an eye over. So I don't want us to be too afraid by this idea of surgery. We'll talk about this a little more, but basically it's like getting a filling. It's an in and out procedure. It's over quickly, and you get to live the rest of your life in freedom. So I feel like that's a pretty fair trade-off. So let's find out if you're tongue-tied.